Hi, welcome back. Today I want to talk a little bit about shadow work and what it meant for me, the steps that I went through, um, how I even learned what it was, because I'd never heard of that term up until about maybe 2 or 3 years ago. So shadow work is kind of going back into your past and looking at all of these different situations that may have happened to you, trying to understand what led up to them, how it affected you, then how you carried it through growing up if it happened as a child, uh, teenager, but how it affected you, how it molded you, and then how do you get rid of that? How do you shake that thought process, that subconscious memory that's just built back in the back of your head that is kind of your ego is kind of protecting you from. At least for me, that's kind of the way I broke it down and how I looked at it. So if you've kind of been digging around into this for a little bit, you've heard the term ego. You've probably heard the term shadow work. You've heard angel numbers. You've heard awake, awakening, ascension, spiritual awakening, all those different things. But there's also progression that comes with all that. And for me, um, I was told, hey, you have all these different clairs. You're clairvoyant, clairaudient, clairsentient. Your intuition is extremely strong. Like these were all confirmations for me. Some things that I already knew, but others, psychic mediums I would talk to, others, they were giving me a little bit more background, and they told me that in order for me to continue to move forward and grow spiritually and make room for these better opportunities that are coming in, I had to go back into my past and face all of those situations. And I was like, well, I don't even remember half of them, right? I mean, it's been so long ago. And they said, it'll come to you, right? So, okay, cool. Kind of just start meditating a little bit. And when I would sit down and meditate for the first time, I just kind of thought about what is really bothering me that I don't even consciously know about, that my ego might be protecting me from, you know. And as I start sitting there 15, 20 minutes, just sitting quietly, just without thinking about anything, thoughts, 15, 20, I'm 50 years old, so 20, 30, 40 years ago, thoughts are popping into my head, specific situations um, that are that I would just replay back in my head like it just happened. Things from when I was a kid, just never really quite fitting in, never understanding why I didn't do anything to anybody, but kids just didn't like me. They um, they would walk on the other side of the hall when they saw me coming, like, "Oh, stay away from him." Da da da. Um, putting tags on the back of your shirt. I actually had one kid in middle school. He was a dick. I don't even know who the kid is, but he wrote "nerd" on the back of my shirt. And I didn't even realize that till I got home. So like all day I'm walking around, and I had that word written on the back of my shirt across my back here. So didn't know the kid. Like I said, never had anything. He sat behind me in class, never talked to him, never did anything. Just kind of how it was growing up. People just didn't like me. But I think that affects all of us a certain way. Maybe some of you guys watching didn't have those type of experiences. Maybe there were other things. But for me, those are what they were. It was basically how people treated me, how for no reason at all they would not like me. And I never quite understood why until I started getting older. And then I learned about, you start learning about energies and how your energies don't interact well with others. And, if you've got a higher energy, vibrational energy than others, they will just not like you. It's like a magnet that just wants to repel. Um, but you don't understand that as a kid, and these things happen to you, and kids make fun of you, and you're kind of by yourself a lot. So, you're just kind of like, well, maybe there is something wrong with me. I don't know. But then as you get older and you start to understand that, those that really wasn't a situation. But then how do you get away from that? How do you heal from that? And then that's when someone told me, until you can release and basically forgive, let go of all of those thoughts you don't even think about anymore, but they're buried back in the back of your head. You won't. Nothing else is going to be able to come in. And I didn't quite really get that. I was like, I don't understand. Like, if something's due to me, then why wouldn't it just come? Well, I kind of attribute it to this. You have a hard drive on your computer, right? And when that hard drive gets full, it says, hey, you can't save down this photo, or you can't send this email, or you can't do whatever, right? You can't play this game. You can't, we can't even create a Word document for you. And okay, so you go and what do? You delete all of that stuff that you don't need anymore. You go through your files, your registries, you look at, you're like, I don't need this, I don't need this, maybe I'll uninstall that, I'll get rid of this, get rid of that. And then now you have room. Now you have room to add more information to your hard drive. You have more room to download those videos to make new memories, right? For new experiences. Well, that's kind of what it's like when, you have to go and do shadow work. You have to go back, and it can be painful, but there's also good things that come out of that too. Memories that I forgot about that were really good times for me, but most of the time they were not. And you look at each one of those. At least that's what I did. I looked at each one of those memories, and I said, okay. The instance with a kid riding on my shirt or walking on the side of the hallway, I didn't do anything to them. I had no idea why they treated me that way. And, as an adult, you're like, well, I can't let that define me anymore. And you just have to come to accept that, and you have to release it. And once you release it and you let it go, which takes time, there's still now, I've been doing shadow work for probably close to a year now. And I will say, actually, just a couple of days ago, another thought popped in my head that I completely forgot about when I was probably in middle school. Things just, they come up, and they come in, you acknowledge it, you address it, and you either take responsibility for it or you don't, and then you let it go. At least for me, that's how I did it. That's what worked for me. Once that starts happening, then you'll notice, not right away, but if you go back and look at the progression of your state of mind, your personality, how you view certain situations, how you go into other situations, it does become a little bit different. And I can say, looking back at a year ago, when I really, really, really started doing this, not just kind of piddling around with it and stuff like I did, for the year or so previously to that, I look back at myself like now and go back to myself a year ago, thinking, wow, like there's a huge difference that I notice in myself, how I approach things. I own a business, so how I approach customers, the confidence that I have, knowing that, people do judge, but it's not as many as you think, and they're not judging in such a harsh way as you might think. So, shadow work's really important. It does free up a lot of memories and mental space, right? It just frees up a lot of those things you really don't want to hold on to. And it just provides room for you to continue to grow and go forward, because as long as you're holding on to those other memories that you may not even know that you're holding on to, your mental capacity, it's like it's full, and nothing else is going to come in. You're not going to receive anything else in, just because you're not ready to, because you haven't released what's there. And as long as what's there is still holding you back, then the new opportunities that God, the universe, spirit guides, however you want to acknowledge them, whatever it is they're trying to give you to get you to move forward, to follow your path, it's going to take more time. And one thing I've picked up, and I've done, from talking to different people and doing different, just reading about different things and listening to different podcasts, if you don't release it, then you will be forced to. So God, the universe, spirit guides, ancestors, ascended masters, whoever they are to you, they will force you to release those, and it's going to be very difficult. So the sooner you can kind of get into that, and the sooner you can start to address and sit back and think about all those different situations. And for me, there was a lot of them. Mostly, growing up, I was born in '74, so first 6 years of the '70s I don't quite remember, but I do remember second, third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, all the way up through high school. And yeah, kids can be dicks. Like there's no easy way to say it. And they were back then. Bullying wasn't a thing back then. There were no bullying programs back then. If somebody was bothering you, either we handled it or we didn't. There's only two things. Like there was no, you didn't tell anybody. If you told somebody, that adults, teachers, whoever at the time, they didn't want to hear it. It was just like, whatever, go outside and play. So you kind of had to figure out, how you were going to navigate. And for me, I just stayed quiet, right? I would sit back and see things. I would know things. I would know the answers to things in class, and I would just never answer. I just stayed very quiet. And even through my adulthood. So, I mentioned ego earlier. And, I'm not talking about ego as in this person that walks around and they're like, oh, I have this, I have that, I got this, I got that, I'm the greatest person in the world. I'm talking about ego as in the spiritual ego that tries to, the conscious part of us that tries to protect us. And that's really what it's trying to do is, if you're trying to say you want to take on a new project and you want to there's this new venture, or you want to start a podcast, or you want to start, there's that voice that's saying, man, like, how's that going to work? Are you sure you can do that? Like, you don't know anything about it. You don't know enough about this. Well, that's your ego. And one thing I've learned about it, again, these are all from my experiences, it's trying to protect me from maybe some of the traumas that I faced as a child, because again, subconsciously it's still there, and you may not recall it right away, but it's there, and your ego remembers that for sure. So your ego is trying to say, oh, hold on a second, I remember back this time back then when, like, you asked a question, somebody said, why do you ask so many questions, which actually was really a situation. That's a real situation for me, and embarrassed me in front of the whole class. I think it was like third grade, and it was a legitimate question, but kids can be dicks, right? So, I went ahead and I just kind of shut down. And, every time I wanted to do something, if I had this idea, I'd always have that thought that said, like, you don't know enough about that. You sure you're capable of doing that? You've never done it before. Well, that's the ego just trying to protect you. You have to quiet that voice. And the best way to quiet that ego while you're trying to do your shadow work, and even going forward when you're done with your shadow work, is, and there's actually a good book on this, you have to address the ego, like you hear it, but you don't give it attention. So you'll hear this thought come in that says, oh, like, you can't do that. Okay, I heard you. And then you give it no more thought, no more attention. You just keep going through with your initial idea. Eventually, those thoughts will start to get quieter and quieter and quieter. And then when you have a thought, or you have this new venture, this new idea, that voice won't quite be so loud. Because part of that is because you're not giving it any more attention. But also, if you're doing your shadow work and you're going back into your past and you're addressing all of those things that have affected you, as a combined effort, it's quieting everything down, and it's allowing you to move forward. So you can continue to walk down that path that we're all here to walk down. We all have a goal to reach before we leave here, and timing's not a thing in the spiritual realm. There's no such thing as time. We invented time. They don't go by time. So some people look and say, oh, I'm 30 years old, I should have done this. Well, I'm 50 and I'm just now doing it. It took that long for me to be able to figure out what it was that I had to do. So, plus I'm stubborn. Like, everybody knows I'm stubborn, and I will fight the tide. But I learned, I don't do that anymore. So there's no more tide fighting. Now it's how do I navigate it, and what do I have to do to continue to move forward while still acknowledging the past, but not giving it time or attention. So there's a difference. So I know there's a ton of books out there. Everybody's trying to sell something, right? There's books on shadow work for this, there's journals for that, you got this full moon cycle, you got this cycle, that cycle, all these different things. Everybody's trying to sell all this stuff, and it gets confusing. For me, I didn't really buy any of that. There was someone that I spoke to that was, I would say, like a spiritual guide, and she was helping me. And shadow work could be something as simple as, if you're trying to recall through meditation, whatever it was that you're trying to release, asking your spirit guides, or your archangels or ancestors, ascended masters, to kind of help you identify those blockages and release them. And you sit quietly and shut down your mind, those thoughts will come through. As they come through, you've got an option. You can write them down. I'm not a big journaler, so as the thoughts would come through, I would acknowledge them mentally, figure out, was it or was it not something I had anything to do with? Did I deserve that treatment? And if I didn't, then it was gone. If I did do something, because sometimes when you look at a situation like, yeah, I kind of was a jerk or whatever, I did, you know, I deserved some of that treatment. Maybe not as bad, because some people hold grudges, right? And then that's another whole story. But yeah, at the end of the day, if I look at it for what it is, yeah, I might have deserved it. So that was my fault, and I shouldn't have done that. But I haven't done it again since. So release it, let it go. I didn't write it down. Like I said, everything I did was mentally, but for a lot of people, I think it helps to write things down. So you can write it down, and as the thoughts come through, you jot them down, and then you look at them. And then once those thoughts come in and you see them, and you're like, oh man, yeah, I remember, yeah, that was a bad situation, or yeah, I probably could have done better in that situation, or no, I really didn't do anything. If I'm being honest with myself, I really didn't do anything. That was just somebody having a bad day. And it in no way defines me. And, always ask your spirit guides for help, your angels, God. Ask for that help, ask for that guidance, ask for that strength, and you'll get there. It takes time, but like everything else on this journey, it takes time, and it takes patience, and it takes persistence and resilience. So, hopefully this helped you guys. Keep working at it. Let me know what you think. If you have any questions, drop them down in the comments. There's also an email down there. I'm open to emails. So anything. Until next time, take it easy.